Our top story here at 5:30 this afternoon.
We will bring it to you just as soon as it does happen.
Don't touch that dial. It's going to be some night. From all the people at KNBC News.
All the people that live in this North Hollywood area, right around Laurel Canyon, Victory, Van Owen, in that area, please stay in your homes. These were absolutely the most brazen gunmen that I've seen in this city in years.
I can't recall exactly what time, but it was fairly early on. And remember, this was back in the era when we didn't have cell phones and we weren't getting bulletin update on breaking news all the time. I was doing chores, I didn't have the TV on. I wasn't yet aware of what was going on. So the assignment desk calls, tells me what's going on, and it was apparent from the beginning this was a huge story. So I jumped in the car and made the drive out. When I arrived, it was tough to get within several blocks of the actual crime scene. It was, as I recall, 9:17 a.m.
The LAPD this morning has moved in with just about everything it has. We counted in one incredible picture from overhead from News Chopper 4.
There was an enormous area that LAPD had secured and was doing a search.
Do not come outside. The officers are having a difficult enough time trying to search the area for additional suspects.
There was confusion how many gunmen there were, whether there may be more gunmen on the loose.
Police are not allowing any kind of movement around the area unless, of course, you're plainly identified.
Police had made a huge perimeter, so we were far enough back. The officers are only 100 yards away. They're relatively close. There were several officers right in Archwood, other officers across Laurel Canyon in the mini mall parking lot. They're relatively close. You could actually hear gunfire coming from inside the bank, because that was the first thing they did when they went inside, is they fired into the ceiling and said, "This will hold up, everybody get down." They used their weapons to blast through the security doors. They didn't stay in the lobby. They actually went back to the vault. They brought the bank manager with them to open the combination. They weren't able to get as much money as they wanted. They were hoping to get $750,000. As it was, they got about $300,000. They don't know that LAPD is positioning outside. They think they still have the element of surprise. And so then on their way out, they send everybody back to the vault and they say, "You stay there." And so 7 minutes afterwards is when they emerge. And then this gunman starts spraying the gunfire with this AK-47 knockoff. They had several assault rifles.
This was some of the most amazing video we have seen all morning. We watched it unfolding live. You see the gunman dressed in black ski mask on his face. Police running to get into position. This man is firing randomly in the parking lot.
And the bullets are going right through the doors of the police officers. I mean, you see traditionally police officers position themselves behind their doors as a position of cover, and they can see what's going on. They can fire over the door if need be. The door is doing them no good whatsoever. They are having to retreat, scramble to other locations, and in the process, they're exposing themselves to further fire. So it was an incredibly dangerous situation.
A lot of heavy automatic weaponry, an AK-47, and also we saw what appeared to be an M16 old-style military semi-automatic rifle.
And in fact, James Zaborovan told us that the armed robber moved when he was hit, but just slightly. And then he turned around looking where the shots were coming from, and it was almost as if he was mad that Zaborovan had the temerity to shoot at him. And so he starts, again, spraying the assault gun fire at Zaborovan and the other officers who were with him. And at that point, Zaborovan realized, we're totally outgunned. There's nothing we can do. Not even the sergeants carried military-style assault-type rifles. That was the province of SWAT.
We need SWAT code 3.
And so the radio calls are going out, SWAT code 3 immediately, we need them. And SWAT was downtown in the middle of a training run at the police academy, 18 minutes away, as it turned out, from responding to the scene. They knew it was going to take SWAT a while to get there. So there was a team of officers actually went to a nearby gun shop. B&B Guns in North Hollywood, as I recall, it was on Oxnard. The owners had a strong relationship with LAPD, and the officers knew if they went to B&B, they could get some assault rifles. And, the officers continued trying to engage the suspects when they started moving farther away from the bank.
He's not even aiming at people. He's just firing in a general direction.
But they just couldn't stop them. There's another little mini shopping mall that's just to the north of the Bank of America, and that was the side where all the action was happening because that's where the getaway car had been parked, and that's where the two gunmen left and went down Archwood. Anyway, several officers took position in that little mini mall. There was a Del Taco. I think there were a couple of other restaurants there. And so they started firing that direction, and that little mini mall was right in the backdrop, and it got hit. Larry Phillips, who was 26 years old, Emil Montessoriano, who was 30 years old. These were not the typical walk up to the teller, be inconspicuous, hand a note, and get a little bit of cash from the teller and then walk out quietly. They did well-planned, high-powered takeover robberies. The previous year, they had robbed a couple of other Bank of Americas in the San Fernando Valley, and it was reported at the time that they'd gotten away with $1.5 million from these two robberies. They had also robbed an armored car. They were ruthless, hardcore, serious planning, prepared well in advance for every crime they planned. They took elaborate steps. They did surveillance in advance. They listened to scanners to try to determine what the police response time would be. Both of them had timers, and they set them for 8 minutes because they figured they had 8 minutes to carry out this armed robbery. They took sedatives, barbiturates, before the attack in the thinking that it would calm their nerves. And they had this body armor, this incredible body armor. Larry Phillips had 40 pounds or more of body armor that he was wearing that day. Soriano did not have as much body armor, but what he did do was he got a steel plate that he put over his chest. And that steel plate was so strong, so resistant to gunfire, that at one point he was hit twice in the chest. But it did not penetrate the steel plate. He kept going. At one point, the radio call went out, go for their heads, they've got body armor.
Go for the head.
Officer Bill Lance saw these guys wearing the masks and all this armor, and his immediate thought was, they walked out of a monster movie. These guys are prepared for war, and we're not going to be able to stop them.
Just hold on, they're bringing the cop in.
It became apparent from what we were seeing from the news chopper that for the first time ever, LAPD was out-armed, out-armored. They could not stop two gunmen leaving a bank. There was this sense of helplessness that spread across the entire city, and it was a horribly unsettling feeling that was tangible. It was in the air. Everybody sensed it. But they did have an Achilles heel. These two gunmen were not able to protect their hands, and they did not protect their lower legs. Their heads were also vulnerable. Eventually, the two gunmen decide that they've got to try to leave the area. And so they've got this 10-year-old white Chevy for the getaway car.
Using that car as cover, apparently, to try to continue their escape.
Montessoriano is driving, and Larry Phillips is walking alongside on the passenger side, using the getaway car as cover, and at the same time engaging police.
Now he's just going down the sidewalk and he's just firing.
They get outside the bank onto Archwood and they start driving east. And by this time, the getaway car has taken so many rounds that it's almost undrivable.
I've seen quite a few bank robberies, and this is just absolutely unbelievable.
Literally dozens of bullet holes in the windshield, at least 2 flat tires. The getaway car is barely moving. So they continue as a team down the sidewalk just a little ways, and then Montessoriano moves on ahead and Phillips takes cover behind this big 18-wheeler trailer that happened to be parked there. One police round strikes the assault rifle that Larry Phillips had and disables it. So he gets rid of the assault rifle and pulls out a handgun, and he continues advancing east on Archwood.
Oh, he's firing some more at the officers.
One round strikes him in the hand, his Achilles heel. He drops the handgun, reaches down, picks it up, and then takes his own life. Montessoriano continued on Archwood, and it was finally about 6 blocks away that he realized if he's going to depart, if he's going to get out of there, he would have to get another vehicle. So that's when he starts trying to carjack. And there was this one pickup truck that came up in the opposing direction, and the driver saw what was going on. He jumped out and ran for the hill.
We have the car in sight.
But Montessoriano can't start the vehicle. And so he tries for a little while and then gives up and gets out just about the time that the SWAT team pull up and just nose right up towards that pickup truck. Montessoriano goes back behind the Chevy, and there is this final gunfight. The SWAT officers realize that Montessoriano does not have body armor on his legs either. And so they are shooting beneath the vehicles, going for his legs.
Looks like this might come to an end here real quickly.
He finally gave up and actually raised his hands and surrendered. And all the gunfire stopped. The officers came around, approached him, saw that he was down, they disarmed him. That was finally the end of this horrendous North Hollywood shootout.
Armor, vest, and ski masks, and automatic weapons, they weren't here to play around whatsoever.
Montessoriano gave up because his legs had been hit with so many rounds. But if not for those Achilles heels of the 2 armed gunmen, they might have gotten away. You can't help but remember what happened that day.
Our neighborhood turned into like a war zone.
Obviously, there was some relief when the incident finally did end after 45 minutes, but the message was so long-lasting.
Clearly, these robbers gave no regard at all to anyone other than themselves.
This day changed everything.
It was an extremely violent, a very violent situation going on down here at the Bank of America earlier today.
And I remember asking Officer Zaborovan, you know, is it possible that something like this could happen again? And he said, I can't tell you that something like this will never happen again. It could. What I can tell you, we will have the means to stop it soon.
An act of terror in Atlanta early this morning during a concert in the Centennial Olympic Park. There are 2 confirmed dead, more than 100 injuries.
It's just horrific to think what happened in that park with so many people there this evening.